CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. The Blood Tribe community is mourning the tragic death of a child. A 6-year-old boy died after he was run over by a school bus, and the bus was being driven by the boy's own father. As Daryl Rummold reports, Blood Tribe police don't expect to lay any charges in what they're saying is simply an accident.
Inside the halls of the Asapi Elementary School, grief counselors are helping friends and classmates make sense of it all. Police say on Wednesday a young boy on his way home from school was killed after he was run over by a school bus on a rural road.
When we arrived on scene, we did find him deceased. The school bus driver was a member of the family of the deceased, and he was on his regular route.
Police say the boy was headed home after school around noon on Wednesday. While investigators are still putting the pieces together, it appears, at least for now, that the boy got off the bus at the wrong stop, quickly realized his mistake, doubled back, and was hit.
Well, definitely something of this nature, and especially involving a child. Everybody involved is feeling the tragic right now.
The Blood Tribe Police Service says a victim services unit has been called in to work closely with the family, helping them through this terribly sad time.
As well, the community here has a pretty good program set up with a crisis unit and a wellness and mental health department, so they'll be following up with the family and the schools as well.
School officials released a brief statement calling the event a very unfortunate, very sad incident, and are trying to provide support to the boy's school family, especially inside his grade 1 classroom. Blood Tribe police have not released the child's name, but CTV News has confirmed it to be that of 6-year-old Leander Holysinger of the Bullhorn area of the Blood Reserve. The driver of the bus was the youngster's father. Police say they are not expecting to press any charges in this case. They're calling it a tragic accident. Daryl Rummold, CTV News, on the Blood Reserve.
A date for a memorial has yet to be determined. A Southern Alberta RCMP officer is being recognized for his bravery. Constable Oliver Richer of the Pincher Creek Detachment was honored at a ceremony in Edmonton this week with a commendation of bravery. Richer helped save the life of a suicidal man from a burning building last June. The man had access to 13 firearms, and the officer's actions helped prevent further harm to the man and his RCMP colleagues that were also on the scene. 2 other RCMP members were also honored with the commanding officer's commendation for bravery, which recognizes courage in the face of dangerous circumstances. Well, Dory Rossiter, many of us think that it's actually pretty easy to be a weather anchor. Even some royalty tried their hand at it. Coming up, we're going to show you some video of Prince Charles taking a shot at anchoring the weather. And we're going to have more weather
That's
coming.
right, Jackie. We do have a few nice days ahead. We've got a nice area of high pressure that's moving in. Actually, Vancouver right now is basking in sunshine, and we're looking for that to migrate into southern Alberta starting tomorrow. I'll have all the details coming up in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Dory. Dozens of southern Alberta police officers braved the weather in Medicine Hat today to join 5 men on their cross-country journey for justice. The participants of the Freedom Walk aim to raise awareness and funds for the victims of violent crimes. Alicia Fieldberg reports.
Dozens of southern Alberta police, RCMP and supporters are taking steps to bring awareness about victims of violent crimes.
For victims that will be brutally beaten, stabbed, shot, and after being released from the hospital, they'll have to go back to their home or their apartment and clean up the blood that's left from the crime scene with family members. And that, to me, is just unbelievable.
We do have the opportunity to give every day.
5 men, including 2 off-duty Calgary police officers, are walking from Vancouver to Toronto to deliver a message of anti-bullying and anti-violence. The men will travel 4,600 kilometers in 63 days, making 50 stops along the way to speak at schools and community events. Their aim is to give victims a voice and the support to move forward.
Victimized over and over and over again. First off with the offense, and then sometimes through no fault of anybody, but through the court systems, they have a pretty rough go of it as well.
That when a victim is exposed to a crime or tragedy, that respect was taken away from them as a result of the crime. And so we want to let them know that we'll stand behind them and get them through that difficult time so that they can move on with their lives.
The officers say it's an injustice that the judicial system only focuses on the people who commit crimes. The Freedom Walk is raising money to provide more education opportunities for victims. Even the social media campaign is offering a rehabilitation tool.
I think that it's time we need to change as a country to start recognizing that victims certainly have rights and need to be recognized, and the focus needs to be shifted onto them and not offenders.
Money raised for the Freedom Walk will fund anti-bullying programs and scholarships for victims of violent crimes. Alicia Fieldberg, CTV News, Medicine Hat.
The Freedom Walk will end in Toronto on June 3rd, and to make a donation or find out more about victim services, you can log on to freedomwalk.ca. Protesters against logging in the Castle Special Place are holding a rally in Blairmore this afternoon. In January, the Castle Crown Wilderness Coalition spent 3 weeks protesting logging in the Castle Mountain Special Area near Beaver Mines. 4 of the protesters were arrested after they refused to leave, although all of the charges were later dropped. Spray Lake Sawmills began logging in the area in February, and work is expected to last 3 years. Today, the group is rallying at the Blairmore Legion Hall, where the logging company is holding an open house to talk about their work in the area. The protesters say 79% of area residents are against logging. The group recently filed a lawsuit that says the province failed to protect the area despite it being declared a special place. There are 81 special places in Alberta. The Castle is the only one without its final protective designation. A Lethbridge political scientist is saying the Conservative government has a lot of work to do to win back the support of some Southern Albertans. Dr. Harold Jensen spoke at the Southern Alberta Council on Public Affairs today. He believes that Premier Alison Redford needs to reach out to her party's traditional base. In last month's election, Lethbridge was the only city south of Calgary to hold on to seats for the Tories. Jensen says he doesn't think Redford will legislate too much to stem the tide. He does say addressing the issue of property rights will be meaningful for a lot of Southern Albertans.
The rural South had always been the strongest bastion of Conservative support, but in 2008 that already shifted and we saw them begin to drift away. So I think this was happening before Premier Redford got in, actually. And so if Southern Alberta is more socially conservative, and there's a bit of evidence to suggest that it is, I don't see much evidence that she plans to drift back that way anytime soon. But I think if there's one thing, I think some significant attention paid to property rights would probably go some way into mending the fences.
Premier Redford recently drew criticism for not naming any MLA from south of Calgary to her cabinet. Now, meanwhile, former Premier Ed Stelmach has a very interesting perspective on why the Wild Rose Party lost the election. He believes it's because of party leader Danielle Smith's position on climate change. Stelmach says an Alberta premier can't try to sell oil to Europe when she said she doesn't believe in climate change. He says Alberta has to respond to what its customer wants. Stelmach also criticized the Wild Rose for proposing cutting back on infrastructure investments. He says Alberta is one of the fastest growing places in North America. He says kids need schools and the oil and gas industry needs more pipeline capacity to get its product to market. Now, on the federal front, a new poll shows the NDP is the most popular party in Canada, and not just among their traditional supporters. Thomas Mouclair and the NDP have the support of 34% of Canadians. That's ahead of the Conservatives at 30%. The Canadian Press Harris Decima survey also puts the NDP at a close second place among rural Canada. The Liberals are at 20%. Harris Decima Chair Alan Gregg says that the New Democrats seem to have replaced the Liberals as the natural party among Canadian women. Well, Alberta Health Services is dealing with a whooping cough outbreak in southern Alberta. Health officials say it's hard to say exactly how many cases there are since the disease affects different age groups. Older children and adult sufferers suffer mild symptoms, while younger children tend to be harder hit. Officials say in most of the cases reported, the person hasn't been vaccinated against whooping cough. The health region usually sees an outbreak of the disease every 3 to 5 years. The last outbreak was back in 2009, and it lasted for 11 months. The most recent cases reported are in Bow Island, Tabor, Vauxhall, Raymond, and in Medicine Hat. Another tough day in the markets. Here's how they wrapped up today.